in reference to the homeless population.
Indeed, Doc. Well, Infinity Fellowship is a body that's dedicated toward taking what we share in common and taking social action with it. And one of the things that we want to provide is something that Sister Vicolin Abdullah, a friend of mine who's a member, says is homefulness. So you don't just say something is wrong with the world. You find a way to fix what's wrong with the world, and you do it affirmatively. So Dwayne Jones, who's a buddy of mine from Memphis, Tennessee, and I had traveled to Haiti to do work there. We built some housing there. We built some tent cities there. And Dwayne had this idea to build these micro homes. And I said, well, we want to be involved with that. Infinity is very much about the youth and the young people and providing new kind of opportunities for people to evolve spiritually. One of those ways is by going out into the community and doing community-based initiatives where people who may not have the safety of a home that we have here. So I pitched the idea to fundraisers and people. We said, well, let's do something interesting. Let's find Nashville's tent city and find a way to provide them with some permanent houses. So we started that campaign, and that's what ended up resulting in Infinity Village. I lived in a space. It's a picture from one of the spaces that I lived in there. I lived in a space for 45 days. And then we raised over $60,000, and Dwayne and I, who you see there in the picture, we put the village together. That's the first completed Infinity Village that replaced the tent city that was dispersed in Nashville during the flood. And we worked together to put these houses in place, and now everyone who lives in the house has an insulated building. They have electricity wired for the houses. They have laminate floors. They have a drop-down Murphy bed. And it's so much better than sleeping on the ground in a tent, especially with the weather as it's been lately. So we want to continue to find a way to provide innovative solutions to social problems. And we prove with this project that it doesn't take a lot of bureaucracy. It doesn't take a lot of red tape. All it takes is a few people deciding that we want to take action, identifying what the need is, and then putting our hands in place with people who are of a unitary mind and making things happen. We did the entire project for Infinity Village in about 7 weeks. From the time I moved into the micro home to the time that I moved out. It took us 10 days to build 6 homes, and we worked pretty much around the clock during those 10 days, and we put them in place in August of 2015. And since then, it sparked a national trend for people around the country who now want to do something similar, to not provide a permanent solution to homelessness, but to provide at least a temporary step up for people where they can have transitional housing and move from living in a car or a tent or a crawl space into living in a solid home where they can have an address and they can get a job, to moving back into affordable housing and back to the workplace. We'd be surprised that in Nashville, between 2,000 and 4,000 people a night are classified as homeless. And when I was living in the micro home, I found that I was doing what a normal homeless person would do. My wonderful wife, Kanitha, was, taking care of, we've got 5 kids, and she, through that project, made sure that they were taken care of. But I was showering at the gym, getting my shave in, sometimes in a bathroom when I needed to. And I met people who are going to work every day in corporate America, wearing suits, doing what they need to do, who were showering at the gym, eating lunch at work, and then going home at night and sleeping in their car, and people didn't even know it. And so they would come to me and say, thank you for doing something about this, because you'd be surprised the number of people in Nashville that look really good but are struggling.
How much does it cost to construct one of these houses?
Raw materials, you can construct one between $4,000 and $6,000. We used about $7,000 per house because we hired a professional crew. If you can do it yourself and you are a construction person and you're licensed and you know how to put these houses together, you can do it a little cheaper than that. Some people call for volunteers to do it now. We didn't want to use volunteers in this particular manifestation because we wanted to make sure that we could stand behind the construction on every house. And sometimes when you have volunteers do mean well, but they might, cut short on a measurement and, not think that when the wind blows, that little half-inch gap is going to make a difference between whether the house is standing or falling.
But what you're saying here is that you found a way that you can economically supply a need that is, and that's much greater in a real sense than somebody being able to live on the streets.
Yes, indeed.
And that brings a lot of dignity.
Yes.
In a real sense back to individuals who find that they have their own individual space and life and secure in a real sense. Is that what you find in reference to?
It is. It's an issue of human dignity, Doc. And when you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about your hopes, your dreams, your family's future, you're thinking about your career and the things that motivate you, that's a lot. It's already a lot. And when you're gifted with being able to lay your head down at night in a solid place that's going to be consistent, that helps you to live those. But when you're not, when the first thing that you're thinking about when you get up in the morning is, where am I going to sleep tonight?
Tonight, that's exactly
How am I going to eat? What am how am I going to navigate my dreams in a world where being homeless, being out of doors, being poor is criminalized? You know, then that's a whole lot to put on somebody's plate. But when you provide them with housing, we see that every research study, including the one that Vanderbilt did last summer, has concluded the same thing, that the #1 way that you deal with the issue of homelessness, whether that's regular people or whether that's people in the lower economic strata or whether it's veterans, is to provide housing. I mean, it's simple, right? We spent $500,000 to find out that the way you stop homelessness is with a home. But it's true.
That's so extraordinary, too, in reference to how easy it is. Well, not easy to concept and et cetera, but after the concept has been laid out and has been proven that this is a successful way of doing it, then it seems so very, very simple.
It's simple, and of course, you know, there are details. It's not easy to build a house. It's easy for people who know how to build houses.
That's it.
So you get the people, you partner with people. But with Infinity, the concept that we've been talking about is everybody contributing something. So there were people who wrote a check for $5,000, and they said, I'm basically going to cover a house. There were homeless people from Mexico who put a check on for $5 and said, I want to live in the U.S. one day. I appreciate what you're doing. What we saw in living motion was the African proverb, when spider webs unite, they can restrain a lion.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience.